The following project is a handmade, slow-cooked solid bar of men's soap made with balsam and orange clove. My favorite method of soap making is slow cooking it in the crock pot. And I think today I'm going to take you through a beautiful project a little bit more slowly than I usually do when I make a hot processed soap video. For those of you who are more familiar with making cold processed soap, making the transition to hot process might be perfectly easy, but I do see a lot of comments that plenty of cold processed soap makers have some apprehension about, I guess maybe about the unknown. So in this video, I'm going to take my time and show you what 3 stages of cooked soap look like without any rush, and generally how to work through each stage until the end. Welcome to Thermal Mermaid. And as always, the exclusive video with the full recipe to this project, along with the printable recipe and instructions, are found over in the directory in the Thermal Mermaid Soap Makers course found at cottagediy.com. From your members dashboard, scroll down to the recipe directory and click on Hot Processed Soap. Then scroll all the way down to the soap titled Siberian Fir, Bamboo, and Orange Clove Men's Soap near the bottom. Then click that, and then you'll have instant access to all the supplemental materials found for this recipe. With the crockpot pre-warmed on low, I've already placed the oils in and allowed everything to melt together. Now this includes everything except the shea butter. I let this all warm down a little bit and then add the lye water solution. Now since this is going to cook anyway, the lye water can be a little bit warm. It doesn't need to be chilled or even at room temperature before we start, but I did wait a little while for the lye to settle down and cool off before I started melting the oils, so it isn't too hot overall to start. When I added the lye to the already warm oils, it's helpful to make sure that both parts are within 20 degrees from one another. The oils are rising in temperature as they're warming, and the lye is cooling down as it's sitting next on the countertop. So you do have to monitor this and blend at the point that they have a similar temperature to keep any unpredictable reactions to a minimum. A window of 20 degrees is fine. One of the things that I like about hot process is this first stage right here. I'm going to take all the time that I want emulsifying before we start cooking. All the designing happens at the end of the project, so I can take my sweet time and blend and not worry about how fast this comes to trace. Once I'm satisfied with how well mixed this looks, I'm going to place the cover over the soap and let this cook for 20 to 30 minutes. It's important in the first 20 minutes not to wander too far away and keep a close eye on your cook, because this is still the time when the mixture can be the most reactive, and the heat is definitely an instigator that's forcing a reaction. So if you aren't careful, the soap can boil right over the top of your ceramic and spill all over the table. It's cooking nicely, and in its fluffiness, you can see that there's a little separation happening in the center of the pot. We want to gently mix this all back together and release some of this air that's causing this soap to rise. Our soap is nice and airy and fluffy, and it's risen to the top of the ceramic lip after about 20 minutes. And this is why it's important to stop now and blend this down. If we leave it unsupervised, this will just keep expanding. Now, as I take my time to mix this will start to look more solid. It will begin to deflate, and it will lose those watery looking patches that form on the surface. And once I turn this back into a pudding texture, we can put the lid back on and allow this to continue cooking. This batch has now been cooking for 1 hour, and when I come back and check on it again, it's not trying to escape the pot anymore, but it has slowly settled into its own space. You can see that when I begin to mix it again, there's a lighter texture on the surface and the bottom is a bit more dense. After this mix, we can see a really good example of the second stage of the cook process. This soap is about halfway done right here, and now is when I'm going to add in the shea butter. Now it's important not to forget this because this is one of the oils that was calculated into the recipe. Without this, your soap may end up lye heavy and feel like it's really stripping the oil off your skin when you use it. Now the shea butter is 5% of the recipe, but we also calculated this formula for a 5% super fat. So we're hoping that most of the oils have been saponified at this point, and the part of the recipe that will remain free-floating oils will be here with the shea butter, which is the richest, most luxury butter of the combination. Now, if you are an advanced soap maker, I'll tell you that I have read some literature that says this method may not be completely reliable, and that the oils do remain free-floating are really more of a combination of everything. However, I still do it this way, and I'll probably never change. After another 30 minutes, we return to a slightly darker looking soap. The surface of the soap begins to take on a glassy shine, and when I mix this, you can see the lighter soap pull up from the bottom and the darker glassy soap blend away. Now right now you're looking at a stage that's just starting to morph into the third stage of the cook process. The darker translucent look is what we want all through the entire batch, and with just a little more time, we've completely achieved this. And you can see on the return that as I mix this, the entire soap is now light amber. It takes on a sheen all the way through, and it's also become a little bit more compact in texture. This is the final result that I've been looking for over the last hour and a half. Now is the perfect time to remove the soap from the crock pot because the texture is still loose, and the longer this cooks, the more stiff the soap batter will become as the water evaporates. So this is the easiest time to mix in our additives. At this stage, you really have to give your project close attention. As soon as you remove this from the heat, it wants to turn into a solid bar, so you have to move at a consistent pace to get your design built into the bar. For this design, I need my soap split into two parts, and on one side I'm adding orange peel powder, and on the other side I'm adding titanium dioxide. The orange peel powder will bring out the dark amber color and contrast that nicely against the lighter, whiter side. This fragrance blend is a combination of light clean bamboo, exotic orange spiced clove, and rich Siberian fir. This is unmistakably a man's fragrance. And here I'll split this evenly between the two parts. Building the design on this bar is easy, and each of our three fragrances are represented in the colors. First, I'm going to start spooning the soap batter into the bottom of the mold in an ordered row with alternating layers. The deep amber soap is our orange spiced clove, while the lighter cream color is the bamboo lotus color. To get the Siberian fir into this bar, I'm going to take a finely dusted dried kale and dust it into layers between the alternate soap rows. And then I'll continue to do this until the entire 3-pound batch is completely moved into the mold. Once all the soap is finished being transferred and packed into the mold nice and tightly, I'm going to give the top a coating of one last layer of kale dust along with our cracked orange peel as a decoration on the top. This will completely coat the top, and then once we're finished with our final touches, it's time to set this aside and let it firm up for 24 hours. And here we are fresh out of the mold, and I'm going to set this on its side for the cut so that the dried orange won't interfere with the slicing. Now that we have our bars, we're going to set these aside for about a month to cure, and then we can enjoy the final product. Now, since this soap has been cooked, it is safe to use and it is completely saponified, but these bars are relatively soft still, and the cure process will evaporate the water and crystallize the soap, making it last longer, and it'll be both more gentle and durable. So it is recommended to treat your cooked soap just the same as you would your cold process soap projects. I hope you enjoyed today's soap craft, and remember, if you are a member who's trying to recreate this project at home, you can ask any questions about working through this project directly on the page where you printed your recipe. There's a place where you can drop your questions, comments, or troubleshooting needs right at the bottom of the page, so I or anyone in the Thermal Mermaid community can help you along while you try this journey. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you next time.